Hello, everyone. Welcome to SCORE, Fairfield County's live webinar workshop. The topic is aligning purpose with profit. My name is Joe Dageston. I'll be the webinar coordinator, and I am a business mentor with SCORE, Fairfield County, and I'll be your host. The webinar is being done in collaboration with Reset Social Enterprise Trust and the other SCORE chapters in Connecticut. From Reset, we have Sarah Badley, and she's going to say a few words before we have our key speaker. So Sarah, you're on.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And I'm sorry, it looks like my video is not there, but you can see my face, and I hope I can connect with folks at some point after this. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm Sarah Badley. I'm the executive director here at Reset. And if you're not familiar with our work, we exist to support impact-driven businesses. So we work with folks who are building and scaling companies that are driven by a mission or a purpose, and that ranges from social, environmental, cultural, artistic. We have a wide variety of impacts that we have had the pleasure of working with through the business support services that we offer. What we're best known for is probably our Impact Accelerator program, which in fact we have the current application round is open until January 3rd. So if anyone here is on the lookout for an accelerator, I would encourage you to check that out. We'll make sure that that information gets shared. But we also offer incubator programs. We have a course called Measure What Matters, which in fact our presenter today, Emily, has designed and implemented that course. And so you'll be getting a little bit of a taste of what we cover in our Measure What Matters program. Over the years, Reset alumni have made an immense impact in the state of Connecticut. They've raised over $21 million in revenue, generated about $10 million in outside capital, and are supporting hundreds of jobs at this point, which we're immensely proud of. So again, it's an absolute pleasure to be here in partnership with SCORE. We have partnered in a lot of ways, and really I think we're all on the same mission of making resources available to entrepreneurs as they grow. So really happy to be here, and you're in great hands with my colleague Emily, who I know will get her introduction momentarily. So please do reach out to us if you'd like to learn more about our work or get more directly involved with Reset after today. Thanks so much for having us.
Well, thank you, Sarah. As we said before, our speaker today is Emily Reisner. For more on the speaker, we just want to tell you a little bit about SCORE. SCORE is a national organization. We have about 240 officers, 11,000 plus volunteers, and we're part of the SBA, Small Business Association. As you see on the slide here, SCORE Fairfield County, we have 100 plus volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. Most of us are retired, but not exclusively. Some people are still in the workforce. We offer about 3 value-added services to small business owners. Number 1 is one-on-one business mentoring. Number 2 is a business education program, in-person workshops, online webinars, live, etc. And there are other extensive resources. All this is free. And if you want to contact or request a mentor, you go to Fairfield County SCORE, or as we see on the screen here, the SCORE mentor. It's a quick 1-page questionnaire, and someone will get back to you in about 24 hours. So today's event will be for about an hour. The speaker will speak approximately 40 to 45 minutes, and will devote approximately 15 minutes to respond to questions. So we do have to end promptly at 1. To answer, to request your questions, you could list them in the chat room. And then when Emily is through with her presentation, we'll take the questions. And this webinar will be recorded. As we do have a library of webinars, and they're all free. You don't have to be a member of SCORE. So if you want to look at this again, or if you want to recommend this to other business people, you just go on SCORE Fairfield County, and the website will direct you to the library. Now our speaker is Emily Reisner. She's the Director of Strategic Advancement at Reset. She has 10 years plus experience in the nonprofit and profit sectors, helping entrepreneurs and organizational leaders work through strategic challenges, optimize impact, and communicate that impact via marketing and storytelling. At Reset, she oversees data, communications, and operational capacity building. She experienced seeing the power of prioritizing impact within a for-profit when she led the B Corp certification process at IQ. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Emily. Emily, it's all yours now.
Thank you, Joseph. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you here today, especially to share Measure What Matters and the other programs we have at Reset that are very impact focused for entrepreneurs who are interested in more than profit, whether that be environmental, social, you name it. So I welcome you all today. Since we're not talking back and forth to each other verbally, I would ask that if you have any questions along the way to just drop them in the chat. And here's a first question for you. So if you care to answer this, I would love to see who's in the room, what type of business you have, why are you here today? So just take a minute, drop some of that into the chat. You can give the name of your business, what your business does, any kind of impact question you have. Feel free to drop that in the chat now. And if you don't have it yet, we can look back at it. So if you come up with something as I'm speaking, feel free to put that in the chat option. All right, let's keep going. And if you want to make the comment, please do. I'll be looking at the chat intermittently. So today's workshop is broken down into 4 parts. The first is vision. So how to identify your overall impact. So do you have a vision already that's impact focused? For example, is it an environmental mission? Is it a social mission? And if it's not, how do you bring impact into that? Part 2, we'll be doing a deeper dive into metrics. So once you have your impact goals and your vision, how do you measure it? And often we have entrepreneurs come to Reset with very lofty visions. And the question is, how do you show where the baseline is? How much change have you been making? Are you making systematic change? Who are you impacting and how? Nice to meet you, Anne. Thank you. So the third part will be narrative, and that's how to communicate impact. Excuse the typo. The narrative is extremely important because if you're not telling your story, no one's learning about you and you're not attracting customers or clients. And then part 4, we'll talk a little bit about action. So now that you've really honed in on your vision, you've gotten great metrics, you've created a narrative to tell your impact story, then what? So vision. Your company organization depends on a strong vision. With clear goals aligned to your vision, it can create a powerful pathway to progress. I starred here that you are encouraged to get your team buy-in when identifying your vision and impact goals. So anyone on the call who's early in their business development and doesn't have a vision, recruit anyone you're working with, your intern even, clients, talk to them about how they see you, but try to make it as participatory as possible. And just to clarify mission versus vision for anyone on this call that might be wondering about that. For Reset, our mission is to grow and support the social enterprise sector. So that's what we're doing right now. Our vision is along the lines of every company in Connecticut will be a social enterprise. And that's a forward thinking vision plan that is talking about the future and what will happen. And as nonprofit, we are ultimately putting out missions and visions that if we achieve, we would no longer be operational, right? Because that's the idea behind nonprofit and really pushing past the problem and solving it. For some businesses on the call, it might not be so clean cut or black and white. So I just ask you to sit with what's your mission, what's your vision, and how do they compare? So questions to ask yourself when you are identifying a strong vision that has impact. So first of all, what's your current vision? Why is that vision important to you personally? So as you're out networking and talking about what you do, the general vision might not catch people, right? But if you're creating a business that solves a certain health problem and you've gone through that health problem yourself, get clear on that. Why is this vision connected to your personal story, or what's the why behind it that makes you get up every morning and move forward? How does impact play a role in that vision? So you might have a vision to have your product in every household in Connecticut by 2025. What's the impact there? Is your product solar panels, and where is the impact there? So to save X amount of carbon footprint every year, whatever it is that's specifically related to your business, really trying to think, what's my vision right now, and does that vision express impact, and is there more opportunity to put impact into that vision statement? So here, I'm going to try to move this top bar. I don't know if that was in anyone else's way, but here we go. So what I put before you now is a framework that we use at Reset, and this is based on the B Corp assessment. So if anyone is not familiar on the call right now, the B Corp assessment is a framework that was created by the B Lab. The B Lab has offices all over the country. The focus of the B Lab is to work with small to medium to now large companies to figure out how to systematically start assessing impact in all different areas and really looking under the hood of companies for where's their impact, where are their opportunities for more impact, what are things that you might not have considered. And at Reset, we love this assessment because we think it's very thorough. Completing this framework today or whenever you have time does not mean you'll be on a path to be a B Corp necessarily, but it just is a very helpful way to break down your business and all that you do. So I'll go over this a bit. There's 5 categories within the B Lab assessment. And the first one is workers. So within your company, are you creating a positive impact for your workforce? So that considers things like compensation, benefits. If you have maternity leave, do you also have paternity leave? Ownership, How do you split up profits? Who owns the business? Training, diversity. Within the B Corp assessment, you can set very specific goals around BIPOC employees, women employees, and not only the percentage of who's who at your organization, but how many people of color are in leadership positions? What's the difference in earnings and wage between the women in your organization versus the men? All that good stuff is in the worker section. So the framework here asks you, how is your company currently creating impact in this area? So you would fill that in. And how could your company be creating more impact in this category? So that's the first category. The second one is governance. So your overall mission, your ethics, your accountability and transparency. When I was at a company that did branding and marketing, they were becoming a B Corp, and as a staff member, I had never seen their overall financial projections. I can't tell you how impactful that was as a staff person to see this is how much revenue is coming in, this is our budget, this is how the company is spending, this is what goes to staff, this is what goes to X, Y, and Z. So if you have a company and you haven't been transparent with your financials, that's a really great growth opportunity. Another one is integration of social and environmental goals and employee performance evaluation. We have a company that we've worked with around the B Corp assessment that does waste management. So they're a composting company. And this was something that we discussed. So how do you, in an annual review, talk to an employee about how their work is related to the overall impact of the organization? Impact reporting. So often on websites these days for any private company, you will see some kind of CSR report, corporate social responsibility. 10 years ago, when I became interested in social enterprise, it was hard to come by who had a CSR report and who didn't. But even if you go on Walmart's website right now, you will find a very robust CSR report. So it doesn't really matter who you are. These impact reports and transparency are pretty much expected at this point. Stakeholder engagement. So let's say that you have a company that is, I just talked to someone who's building accessory dwelling units on properties in areas where it has become legal. So for him, this would include, you know, as you're building out these accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are you talking and gathering research from the people, from your customers about, are these actually effective? How sustainable are they? What kind of impact are they making in the community? What types of people are actually living in these places? So that's just one example of stakeholder engagement. Someone asked, is vision like a business plan? Good question. So a vision is part of a business plan. The business plan typically includes your mission, vision, how you're going to make money, who your audience is, who your competition is, some of your company goals. So it's multi-tiered. And I know both SCORE and Reset work a lot with clients on strengthening business plans. So if anyone is having questions about business plans, definitely reach out to one of us and we can help you with that. So moving on to other categories. So environment. Topics like climate, water use, and sustainability, impacts on land, where you source materials from, your supply chain. So this is a big one. We have a food incubator, and often when food businesses come to work with us, they wonder, how am I a social enterprise? I make food. I like to please people with the food that I cook, but how can I do more? How can I make an impact? One woman who took my course, she is being much more intentional about the packaging she's using. So really thinking about how to introduce more sustainable packaging into her products. And because that might be more expensive, really communicating that out to her audience that when you purchase from her a catering event or whatever it is, you might be paying a bit more because you are not going to be supporting styrofoam or other non-sustainable materials. Community. So community is your contribution to the economic and social well-being of the communities in which you operate, job creation, civic engagement, and philanthropy and partnership. So community is a great one to focus on. Hiring practices have gotten really creative and innovated over the last few years. There's many companies out there that are particularly hiring previously incarcerated men and women to give them a second chance. There's cafes that exist specifically to do this. There's a couple I can think of in California. There might be one in Connecticut that I just heard about, but specific hiring practices is a great one. And partnerships is also one to think about. We had an organization who they provide family education and parenting education, but mostly with corporations. So they weren't necessarily getting their education to maybe a more low-income population and families that might have more stressors and more triggers in their life that they could use some childhood development education, et cetera. So their idea was to partner with the community organization in the area and provide free parenting education because the corporate partners would subset those expenses. So those are some examples of how you can think about community. And then finally, customers. So customers, the value that your company creates for your direct customers or clients through topics such as ethical and positive marketing, quality assurance of products and services, data privacy, data security, feedback forms, testimonials. So I really want to highlight testimonials here. Anytime I coach a business client at Reset, I always ask them, do you have testimonials on your website? Are you collecting testimonials? How are you doing that? The point here is that through testimonials, your client or customer can really let you know what their needs are. So often as entrepreneurs, we can think, oh, I know what this person needs, and we might be off the mark a bit. So it's really about aligning the demand with the supply in a very effective way. I'm going to move on from this framework, but this is a bit complicated and there can be a lot of jargon on here. We do have this in a PDF form. I'm hoping Sarah can drop this in the chat, but if you would like a PDF of this to complete, just email us at info@resetco.org. That's info@resetco, RESETCO.org. And we will send you this, and we can also set up a discovery call with you, but we do have this in a PDF format. So now that you've come up with some of your big lofty goals, and now what? What do you do? So metrics, the tracking of numbers. Now that you've gotten clear on your goals aligned with your vision, it's time to select metrics. These metrics will help keep you a leader and your team be held accountable to your goals. Sorry, that's supposed to say keep you as a leader in sustainability and help your team be held accountable. So you can say, oh, we'll bring more solar energy to the state of Connecticut, but that's not actually goal oriented, right? So if you're a solar energy company and you say our first year goal is to bring solar energy to 50 homes in 2022, now you're getting somewhere. So my recommendation and what I do with the Measure What Matters class is I ask everybody to go to the chart that they filled in and pick 3 things that are the most important things to them. So you might have 10 to 20 things written down here, and pick 3 that are brand aligned and vision aligned. So now that you have 3 goals, what's next? Questions to ask yourself when creating these goals. So what metrics are you already keeping track of as an organization? So you might be keeping track of how many customers you have, how much revenue has been generated, many different things. And so it's important to continue tracking those things and think about if you have the capacity to track many more things and what that capacity is. But I definitely would prioritize as well. And this workshop is called Aligning Impact with Profit. I would encourage you to maintain your metrics that are really demonstrating that you have a solid business through sales, through customers, customer retention, etc. So this is a 2-part exercise: the metrics that are around profit, and then coming up with the metrics that are around impact. And some of those might overlap, right? So if you have, let's go back to solar energy. If you have a solar energy company and your focus is having 50 clients by 2022, that could also be seen as an impact metric. So there could be overlap. It's not black and white. I would suggest that you think about, are there any challenges you anticipate in reaching these goals? So say you're a food business and your goal is to have completely sustainable packaging for your business by 2022, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But a challenge might be affordability, right? So can you actually afford this as an organization? Would you take a big hit by doing this? And these challenges are really important to identify and work through. Thirdly, how will you track these goals? So who is responsible for tracking? How will they be tracking? Is it in an Excel spreadsheet? Will you come together as a team halfway through the year, annually, to talk about these things? And then finally, is there a way to have your stakeholders participate in identifying these goals? So the example I can give right now is we had an organization that was a BID, so a business improvement district, that was trying to figure out how to identify and measure their impact. And the big aha moment is that they should be surveying all of their stakeholders. So all the business owners in the community were really their top priority. So they'll be sending out a survey to all the business owners within the BID, asking questions about, do you care about the crime in the area? Do you care about people having access to transportation late at night? You know, like, what are the important things that people would care about that would bring impact to the community? While we're on metrics, oftentimes these assessments that are so metrics focused can be used as leverage to bring you some, to show people, to demonstrate your commitment to sustainability. So we went over the B Corp. That's the one we just did with the framework. B Corps are a great option if you want to network with the B Corp community. There's amazing entrepreneurs within that ecosystem. It's also a stamp of approval for a lot of products when you go to the supermarket. I definitely challenge you next time you're at the store, if you haven't heard of B Corp, start picking up some packages that are more sustainable, organic brands, and I bet you will find a couple of B Corps at your local grocery store. The next one is 1% for the planet. So this is something that creates accountability for a company and also helps people see that you really are committed to some kind of giving back. And 1% of the planet is an actual certification that 1% of your profits, I believe, go to an organization, an environmental mission organization. ESG, environmental, social, and governance certification. This can be a little bit more in depth, but if you have a manufacturing business or if you have a business with a very elaborate supply chain, this would be a good one to look up. Probably many of you are familiar with the Fair Trade Certified. So if you have a product that is from overseas or your supply chain is in a different country, this is definitely one to consider. A lot of times fair trade, we think of coffee. Awesome. Somebody dropped in the chat, Susan, my business is teaching stress management with an integrative approach. I have a legal background, and so I am primarily targeting attorneys and the judiciary as well as higher ed. I welcome all businesses. Awesome. So you are a service-oriented business, and a lot of this would be related to you. Awesome. Somebody asked to turn on the Zoom transcript. Is somebody able to do that?
Yes, it is on, Emily.
Awesome. Okay, I can't see it, so thank you. All right, so moving on, narrative. So this for me is the most interesting part, because you could have a really great company that's doing really great things, but if nobody hears about it, it's not going anywhere because nobody will know about you. And within our capitalist system, it's a lot of competition. While it might be friendly competition, we as business owners need to, put ourselves out there as what we stand for, and so that people will pay attention to our brand and resonate with it. I say here, branding and marketing is just as important, if not more important, as your actual product or service, because it's what attracts and retains customers. You might have had the experience where you have seen companies that seem like they're doing a lot of good, but it's all in their advertising and they're not actually doing it. So that's not what I'm recommending, but I think prioritizing branding and marketing is really critical. The term for what I just referenced is often called greenwashing. So for instance, if you were buying a detergent and it said 50% organic or something in big letters, now what does that really mean? So you have to be careful as customers, consumers, about what you're consuming, and are their actions reflecting their words? So in this process, my hope is that you will select 3 goals, 3 objectives that you are tracking. And now it's time to create a strategy to share what you are doing with the world. And I write here, inspire others, because I really think that instead of looking at it as competition, we can look at it as inspiration for each other, right? So someone had to be the first to step up and create impact reports. I'm sure you're all familiar with Patagonia. Patagonia has been a champion and a leader in this space since its inception. It's really shown people that you can be a business and do good. I really recommend going on Patagonia's website and looking up their impact report. It's very thorough, and it almost feels like a nonprofit when you look at it, but it's not. It's very sales oriented, and it should give you some inspiration. So just some context of where we are right now in 2021, almost 2022, hard to believe. So environment, 57% of consumers are willing to change their purchasing habits to help reduce negative environmental impact. So like I mentioned with this food company that was interested in substituting harmful products to the environment and substituting them with products that were a bit more expensive. This statistic is really showing that this makes a difference for people. We have a client, or he's an alumni of the program now, Curated CT, and you should check them out. They do curated boxes of Connecticut products. He was just telling me now that all of his boxes are made from mushrooms that can be composted extremely easily. So this is something that, again, appeals to his client base, and he knows it, and he is helping the environment and showing his clients that he's putting his money where his mouth is, and standing for a local supply chain and making that supply chain really sustainable. So supply chain, just so everybody on the call knows what supply chain is as a business, if you are buying your product, ingredients, parts, whatever it is from another company, that counts as your supply chain. So for a car company, anywhere that car company is importing parts would be a very elaborate supply chain potentially. I worked with an organization that was looking at Coca-Cola's supply chain, a very interesting experience where I was researching different sugar farms in El Salvador to see what the status was for children workers there and what the laws were, because Coca-Cola, can't just say, oh, well, El Salvador allows people to work at 16, right? They have to be accountable to American consumers who expect that minors, as we consider them, will not be working to produce what we're consuming. So it can get very nuanced, very interesting, but that's a really good one to understand. So I put here 71% of consumers said they will pay a premium for traceability or to understand where the product comes from. So for instance, I'm trying to think of a good product. So if you have a food product and let's say a coffee, and on that coffee it doesn't say where the coffee came from, a lot less people will buy that coffee than if you say coffee Costa Rica or wherever it comes from. People really expect at this point to know where everything comes, what they're consuming, what they're eating. Personal accountability. Out of 1,000 consumers surveyed, 96% of them feel their own actions, such as purchasing ethically, can make a big difference. So change is here, it's happening, which is awesome. And it's time for us to all get on board and how we can transform our organizations, our companies to be more sustainable, accountable to the customer, etc. I see some things in the chat here. Okay, great. So Sarah's dropping in some links. These are great examples of companies that are really on top of their sustainability. So here I dropped a organizational impact spectrum. So when we talk about social enterprise, what does that really mean? And so I really like this chart. So it ranges from traditional nonprofit all the way to traditional for-profit. So a traditional nonprofit like Reset, where I'm zooming in from, all of our impact is really based on funding. So we apply for certain funding and we say to the funder, we'll do X, Y, and Z. We will provide business programming for this amount of people so that they will be able to generate this much revenue and hire this many people. And for that, we put out a nonprofit impact report. You can also have a nonprofit with income generating activities. And Reset actually does do that. So we have a co-working space and membership program. So any income that comes through that is considered an income generating activity. And a lot of nonprofits are thinking this way because the funding space can be very stifling. A lot of funders can be stringent about how you can use your funds, how you can implement your programs. And so there's been more of a push by nonprofits to focus on creating divisions, programs, departments that are really based on a fee. Then we come to social enterprise. So the way this is presenting social enterprise, and it's not exactly a science because social enterprise is a term created by our culture, created by society, but the way it presents here is that a social enterprise would really be a mission-driven business. For instance, a solar panel company, a company that's providing parenting education, whatever that mission is very clear, very upfront. And then we have a socially responsible business. So a socially responsible business could be a company that, a technology company, for instance, who they do volunteerism. So at the end of the year, they create a volunteer program and they're really focused on the community. So that's an example of it's a business that their most important mission is to sell a product and create a profit, most important objective, but they have in the background something that they're doing that is socially responsible. They might have a very thorough diversity, equity, and inclusion program, et cetera, but they're not all the way in. They're doing some things and not everything. A corporation practicing social responsibility. So for instance, this could be, let's go with Amazon. So I can't really read the room of who's pro-Amazon or who's anti-Amazon in this room because I can't see your faces, but Amazon is a corporation and then they have social responsibility initiatives. So I've seen a lot about their minimum wage that is often higher than some states have their minimum wage. So that's a institutional practice that becomes part of the corporation. So it's not just, oh, we'll do some volunteering at the end of the year. Everybody send me the date and time that you want to go out and be a volunteer. It is a systematic policy procedure that is part of the institution now. If you have any other examples, anyone that's listening, please drop them in the chat. That's the first one I thought of. So traditional for-profit. Traditional for-profit is an organization that is not necessarily thinking about impact or environmental, social at all. They are very focused. You might see some, the landscape is really changing. So one thing that comes to mind is financial institutions. So there could be some financial institutions who their only purpose is they're a hedge fund and they are, raising money for their clients. But some hedge funds are becoming more impact driven. So you really don't see this that often. Banks as well, all banks now have CSR programs. We have multiple banks that are funding resets work. So I have to say, it's hard to think of just a traditional for-profit these days. So elements of a communication strategy. So we know it's important to share out the stories. We know it is, our business depends on it, but how do we do this? And I'm just going to take 5 more minutes on this section because I do want to come to a close and I want to answer any of your questions. But one of the reasons that I include this slide is I can say, okay, now it's time to create a strategy a marketing strategy for impact, right? Well, if you're on this call and you don't necessarily have a communication strategy yet for your whole organization, that's really important. And I would start there. So some of the marketing channels could be your website, your newsletter, different forms of social media, and how you're using those social media frequency. So thinking about how much and how often you're communicating on those channels, and write it down somewhere. So my business will post on social media 2 times a week on Instagram because that's where most of our following is. We'll send out a newsletter monthly, and it will cover themes such as X, Y, and Z. And the website will be updated with testimonials, something like that. And that doesn't even get at the impact yet, right? So that's just a basic marketing communication strategy. And when I say marketing communications, I use them somewhat interchangeably. So I recommend engaging others in your impact. So if you, for that instance, when I talked about the client who provides parenting education, so they work with corporations, right? So is the corporation that's hiring them telling the story? And how are they doing that? So whoever is hiring you, what's their impact story? How are they talking about you? Your clients and customers, is there a way to have your customers tag you on social media as, I just got my first solar panels on my house, and tagging you as part of your mission? So really thinking outside the box and how to engage others. Questions to ask yourself: how are you currently sharing your story as an organization? What is your brand voice and tone? Who is your audience specifically? And what marketing channels do you use? List them, add the frequency at which you update them. And then where can you start fitting in your impact story? So refer to those 3 identified impact goals for the year, and how do they show up? Is it that when you send out a newsletter, you have an impact corner? Are you going to be creating an impact report for your website? Really get granular. After focusing on the impact and the goals, where does it show up so that you're sharing it out? And then finally, action. So what are 3 steps you can start implementing right now that will create momentum on making your impact and share it? This is really why I suggest going through that framework that the B Corp creates, because you'll come up with a lot of stuff, and some of it might be low impact and very difficult to do. You might not focus on that. I would focus on some of the lower hanging fruit, at least to get your start. We've talked about testimonials. We've talked about transparency of financials. We've talked about supply chain and thinking about where you import your products from as a company. Are those companies women-owned, minority-owned? There are some things that can be more attainable within the next year. And another one that comes up is bank. What kind of bank are you using? Are you using a community bank for your business, or are you using a national larger bank that is not as sustainable? So definitely 3 steps to start implementing to momentum to reach your impact goals. These steps could range from launching a website to sharing a client story weekly on social media. So for the communication aspect, are you sharing out those testimonials you're collecting? How are you, once you take the information from the surveys, how are you sharing those out? We talk about SMART goals at Reset, being very specific, having dates, having deadlines. And the last piece I'll leave you here with is be creative. Look at other organizations, businesses that inspire you. How are they doing it? What speaks to you? What makes a difference? And I hope you have fun with it. I hope that this was impactful and helpful in thinking about how to navigate your impact as small to medium business. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, and thanks to Reset in planning this workshop and webinar. Just a few closing comments, and then we'll take some questions. Just a reminder that for SCORE, if you go to Fairfield County SCORE website and you want to request a mentor, that's where to do that, and it's free. And also, you'll be receiving some evaluations, so it would be appreciative if you fill those out and send them back to us. Emily, can you see the chat? I don't know whether we're up to date on answering everything. I know Sarah has put a lot of things on chat because people ask for different links. So she's accommodated us from that. The one Q&A we had was answered, so that's off. And I think, I mean, if you could.
There is one question I see. Where does Reset revenue come from? Is there a cost for your services? So
Yes.
I do want to answer that. Some of our business programs are free. The food incubator, the retail incubator. At this time, Reset is charging a small fee for the Impact Accelerator. So that is about $600 total for a team up to 3 people. And if there's an issue with paying for this, you're welcome to reach out to us, ask us questions about it. But the program is valued at about $20,000. So with that $600, you're getting extensive mentorship, extensive content that will make you feel like you just got your MBA, and so much more, legal workshops, technology experts, etc. So, and then Measure What Matters is a very small fee. I think the cost for early bird sign up was $99. And then we do provide coaching as well, like SCORE. So the first 2 coaching sessions with us are free. And then moving forward, we do charge $40 a coaching session. We recommend an arc of 5 sessions. So that's a bit of an overview of what we charge, if anything. But for the most part, as I said, we are funded by foundations and corporate partners and some individual donors. So thank you. I see, did more show up in the chat? Okay, give me 1 second to read this. Multifamily real estate, really interesting.
Oh, the one above it.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Joseph.
The one above it says business impact analysis. I guess someone looked on the internet and found that. They want to know.
Oh, okay. I see 2 different question things going on here. So, okay. All right, let's do that one first. So what are the best ways I can position my company if I incorporate tomorrow to become a B Corp? What's the soonest that I can become a B Corp? So the last time I took someone through B Corp assessment excuse me, it was about 4 years ago. So I know that they've increased their price a bit. The minimum price to go through the B Corp assessment is $1,000, and then it increases as your company becomes larger. So I don't not recommend the B Corp path, but if you are a solopreneur, or if you don't have that $1,000 budget, it can be a longer term plan. The way you would become a B Corp is you just Google right now B Corp assessment. You can create a profile, and that assessment typically takes about, I would say, give yourself 10 hours. So do it over a couple of weeks, and it might require writing up some procedures and policies. And then somebody from the B Lab will be your point person, and they would pick, I think it's 10 or so items, and do a deep dive with you on those things. So if you say you have a policy for diversity, equity, and inclusion, they would ask you for it, they would go over it with you, etc. Your question, so what's the soonest I can become a B Corp? I would say give yourself about 2 years. I've heard that there's a pretty long waiting period at this point. It's become a very popular credential. So to take the assessment, I would give yourself at least a few weeks to do it the first time, and then a few weeks more to make corrections. So that's about 3 months. And then you might have to wait up to 6 months to have it reviewed by a point person. And if they find that you made any incorrect answers, they would give you an opportunity to update it. So I would give yourself at least 2 years to really consider the B Corp path and become an actual certified B Corp. If you're interested, I would definitely suggest taking the assessment to get a baseline.
Okay, we're just about finished. It's a couple of minutes to 1, and I think you've covered all the key questions. That was very good questions about the B Corp. So on behalf of the Connecticut SCORE, I'd like to thank both of you and the presentation, and also thank Reset. And those of you who have attended, thank you very much. The people who didn't attend, they'll probably get a link if they want to review this webinar, which goes for an hour. So everyone have a good day. And again, Emily, thanks a lot. That was a very, very interesting and valuable presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yes, please reach out if you have any questions, and we hope to see you soon.
All right, thank you.